type in today's the terms and topic or theme, whatever that we're going to discuss today. And so, and today's another fundamental teaching of Buddhism is the three signata. The three signata, or three signs or marks of existence. And then you may see in the chat box I just shared, under this topic, there are a few key terms that we're going to discuss in the morning. So if I go through again, just look inside the chat box. So empirical existence, knowledge of Udaya, Udaya plus Vaya, arising and falling, the Lakkhana, three signata of existence. There is anicca, impermanence, dukkha, suffering, unsatisfactoriness, and anatta, non-self, no soul. So, first of all, I would like to start with one verse from the Dhammapada. That is, give me 1 second. I will just type that in. Dhammapada, verse number 113. So, now this is the Pali verse number 113 from the Dhammapada. And then I just type that in for your reference in Pali. What this verse means is life for 1 day is greater than life for I think I will, let me just read that out from a translation straight. The translation is better than 100 years in the life of a person who does not perceive the arising and the falling of the five aggregates is a day in the life of one perceived the arising and falling of the five aggregates. What this stanza, this verse means, now even if you live 100 years but without seeing Udaya, that is Udaya and Vaya, Udaya and Vaya of existence, your life is not as great as that of someone who does see Udaya and Vaya of his existence. And then those who see Udaya and Vaya, and they live only 1 day in their life, but that life for 1 day is far greater than that of a person who lives 100 years but failing to see Udaya and Vaya. Now, for this morning, this would be the first pair of key words. Now, Udaya is arising, and Vaya is falling or passing away. Now, these two terms, it's as one word, it is Udaya, Udayabhaya, Udaya, and Vaya. Now, given the Buddha's explanation of empirical existence, you know what empirical is? Empirical is based on the moment, so that we experience something, and based on the moment and experience, we define our existence, that is empirical existence. And then, so when it comes to our existence, once again, just yesterday we talked about a kind of subconsciously maintained sense of permanence that we might maintain. So when it comes to, and then this Udayabhaya is considered a special knowledge, jnana. Now, this is not everyone, this is a special knowledge. And then in Buddhism, you basically meditate, and then you, in your meditation, you see the arising and falling of your thoughts, of your feelings, of inner mental tendencies, emotions, etc., etc., and then of your physical body. And then you compare your childhood with your teenage, if you are a teenager, or you compare your childhood and teenage with your middle age, if you are in middle age, or if you compare your childhood, teenage and middle age with your old age, if you are in old age. In other words, what is meant by Udayabhaya Jnana, or the knowledge of arising and falling of everything, arising and falling of everything. But we start from our own selfhood. So based on our selfhood, based on the nature of our selfhood, we practice, we acquire knowledge of arising and falling. Now, if you consider, when you look at your childhood, and then none of us are a child anymore, and we are either, some of you are very young, I mean, and then in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s. I'm in my early 50s, so 52 years old. And when I compare my childhood and my teenage with my middle age now, so as an average human being, I would at times worry about my youth, for example, because I meditate a lot. I'm just saying that as an example. Now, I think I just shared one story with you during the last course, right? When a gray hair appeared for the first time on my head, when I was, I think, 16 or 17, and it was the day before the full moon. As per the monastic tradition, we would share on a regular basis. Then I noticed one gray hair. I think I told you the story, and people were laughing that day. And then my master, my teacher, was standing behind me. I didn't see him standing there. And that's when he asked what I was doing, I told that that I got one gray hair. And that's when he told me, Upananda, one day you'll be happy that one day you will be happy that you still got one black hair, right? So that is one fascinating moment of awakening that I had that day from with my guru, with my teacher. So and then what happens is we, because of that subconsciously maintained sense of permanence, most of us fail to see that life is not fixated at a certain point on something, at a certain reality, at a certain concept, and it is a constant and is incessant flow. It's a stream. Life is seen as a stream in light of knowledge of arising and falling, udaya and vaya, udayapaya. Life is not seen as a permanent entity, not as something that is fixated somewhere, but as a whole ongoing, so incessant stream or flow. Flow of what? Flow of experience. And then when it comes to experience, you may learn another word, sankhara. Yeah, that's right, Josh. Yeah, and we cannot maintain external conditions to our likening at the time. Yes, all the time. That's right. So sankhara, sankhara is dynamics of experience. Sankhara, the general traditional translation of sankhara is conditionally arising things, or conditioned things. So sankhara is conditioned things, or anything that is made of cause and effect. And then we will once again revisit this idea of sankhara in our future lesson, on future discussion on dependent origination. At this time, these are the three keywords: udayabhaya, udayavaya, and sankhara. And sankhara again is dynamics of experience. So now everything is subject to change when it comes to our life. How do we define our existence? We do define our existence based on our knowledge and experience, and then it's dynamic. What dynamics denotes is it is unbroken, it is ongoing, it is like a force, it's like a stream, it's like a flow, and then every moments are connected with each other by experience. Now, we had the childhood and we had the teenage. We experienced teenage. We experienced life as a child, as children, as teenagers. And maybe some of you are still very young. Some of you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Maybe you are in your 70s. And then, so when I apply the teaching of Udayabhaya into my own life, I while I see that it is the same me that was in my childhood, and it is the same me myself that was in my teenage, and it is the same me myself in my early middle age now, because I'm 52 years old. So, but at the same time, um, as I at times do, as many people do, even though I know life is one, life has different episodes, childhood episodes, teenage episodes, middle age episodes, and old age episodes, is full of episodes. And then while I see the All these episodes are of one single life that I have been living. At the same time, at times I fail to interconnect all these episodes and come to a conclusion that I have changed a lot. I see that I have changed a lot. I'm very different physically and emotionally, psychologically. I'm very different than when I was a child, when I was a teenager. But still, at times, I would love to go back to revisit my youth and my teenage years and just to remain there. And why is that? That is because of that subconsciously maintained subconsciously maintained natural sense of permanence. And then we would love to define permanence in terms of youth, and then not in terms of our childhood. Childhood is memorable, but at the same time, in our childhood, remember, we all wanted to rush into adulthood. And then when we become in our teenage years, and then we would enjoy. And then past 22, 25 years of age, and then as we were now going, reaching 26, 7, 8, 9, and 30, and then when we are done with that decade, 20s, and then slowly, and we would not at in certain cases at times, so maybe in most cases, most of the time, would worry that we are not young anymore, even though being youthful or youthfulness or young, these terms are defined in a way we can, and most of the time people uh, define youth, teenage years in a romantic way. We can have romantic definition of youth. Okay, why say, and okay, say talking to a 90-year-old man, so that I would say, wow, sir, uh, wow, I can't believe that you look much younger for your age, just like I mentioned yesterday. But for the moment, that person would get elated by my my comments, and then but my saying. But at the same time, and later, a moment later, he would say, "Wow, maybe I look younger for my age, but I am old. I am in my 90s." So that is what we call the romantic appreciation of old age as being young, as being youthful. You could be youthful in your emotions, maybe to a certain extent in your, in your physical body as well. But beside, just forget about that. When it comes to the knowledge of Udaya and Vaya, Udaya, knowledge of arising and falling. So Buddha highly encourages us to acquire this knowledge or define our life, look at our life in light of this knowledge of our knowledge of arising and falling. Because why? We can use the electricity analogy. Now, when you look at a bulb, or so that energy particles keep flowing into the light bulb, and then these particles get burned in I think so quick, and then the flow of electricity power occurs so fast, so constantly, so incessantly, that to us, to our naked eye, it is an unbroken flow of energy or energy particles, energy into the light bulb. And so that as long as we have the light on, and then we see, if we keep looking at the bulb, and then we would see, so that is constantly burning. It is light all around. There's no break in that flow. But actually, when it comes to when you look at that scientific process, and then in between each energy particle that is burned, thereby producing light, and then there's a gap between, and then that is what we fail to see, the gap. And then you can better understand it in terms of this Buddhist term, emptiness. Emptiness, or nothingness. Sunyata, or sunyata, emptiness or nothingness. I think in the Western world, Western people prefer nothingness over emptiness, because according to English language, so the term emptiness has a negative connotation, even though it is used as a standard Buddhist term. Now, empty, given the space, given the gap between two energy particles, and that contribute towards the incessant flow of electricity or the power into the light bulb. So there's a gap, but we don't see the gap, and the gap is only seen if we see that every energy particle, can emptiness be called boundlessness? Yes, you can call it boundlessness, because it's not qualified, it's not conditioned, it continues. So yeah, you can call it boundlessness. And then when it comes to emptiness, and between two energy particles that contributes towards maintaining an incessant flow of power or electricity, there's a gap in between, and we don't see that gap. In order to see the gap, we need to first, in our imagination, maybe through our meditation, or at least we need to assume that the gap between two energy particles is what is called emptiness. And then so there's no other way to see emptiness, because as you know, emptiness is one big term that has paved the way for multiple debates, philosophical debates between different schools of Buddhism and in other religions as well. Now, when you see that gap between two energy particles, when you see that gap between two energy particles, so that very gap is the emptiness. And then if we look at our mental conditions, and then so we constantly create feelings. And then as we started this session, while we have been paying attention to the discussion, dialogue, at the same time we have been creating multiple feelings about the terms that we are learning, the factors that we are discussing, and so on and so forth. At the same time, there could be a feeling of thirst, hunger, or missing an in-person, person-to-person class, so in Augusta, and so on and so forth. We would have been creating multiple feelings, and then so those feelings flow so fast, so quick, and we wouldn't see that there is gap in between. But that is at that point, in order to see Udayabhaya, Buddha recommends us meditation is a must. What do we do in meditation? In meditation, we slow down our chains of, we slow down our chains of thought. In Pali, that is chitta. Chitta viti. Chitta is our mind, our mental conditions and thoughts, and then viti. Viti is the flow stream, chains of thought. And then since we woke up this morning, we may have created millions of feelings, millions of thoughts, and then and we didn't count how many thoughts we create, maybe millions. But and then since we woke up this morning and we felt something, okay, today is the class, or maybe I am thirsty, I'm going to use bathroom, or I'm hungry. So whichever the first feeling that you created, that you had since you woke up, the very moment you woke up, and until now, to you have been the same person, waking up, taking a shower or a wash, and then drinking some coffee, tea, having breakfast, or then getting dressed up and come into the camera and taking notes, listening and participating in the dialogue. And it has been the whole flow of thoughts, feelings, mental tendencies, so that, but not and then we didn't, to us, it's been the same person. It's been the same me, same us, who have been doing this since morning. And of course, when you go beyond, go back to the past, since the moment we were born into this world, we had been thinking, we had been feeling, we had been creating mental tendencies, and it has been a one whole flow of existence at that point in term our mental existence. And then so that maybe most of us didn't see a gap between at least two different or same kind of feelings up to this moment in our life. Whereas in meditation, you may have. What happens why meditation is recommended as a solution, or as a, as a remedy. I wouldn't say the remedy is not the right word. So as a tool, as a mechanism to understand Udaya and why arising and falling our feelings and moments and thoughts, etc., is because when you sit in meditation, when you are focused on breath, or whatever the meditation focus that you are using for the meditation. So at that point, so that when you focus on one object, what happens is mind starts slowing down. As the mind starts slowing down, you would start feeling like you arrived at an intersection, as an all-way all-way traffic intersection, that where the four stop signs are there are, and then so you arrived at the all-way intersection during the rush hour, and then you would say whoso comes first goes first. And then there's always heavy traffic at that intersection, and you keep observing the traffic arriving and leaving at the intersection, from the intersection, and then you keep yourself observing for long hours, And toward the night, if you stay like 10, 12 hours toward midnight, there'll be less and less traffic arriving. There could be hardly a car or a vehicle arriving, and then there's no other car arriving from the other 3 streets along the 3 other streets, and then that car stops and it goes. And then at times there'll be times there's no vehicle, no traffic arriving at all, and you will simply see the 4 stop signs are standing on 4 sides, and then there's no drivers, no car, no vehicle, no traffic approaching. And so when you continue to meditate, when you use that, when you look at meditation in light of that all-way traffic analogy, so that when you sit for meditation, and you will first you will get your mind flooded with multiple multiple feelings, tendencies, in mental tendencies, memories, emotions, etc. But as you continue to watch your mind based on your breath or whatever the focus that you have chosen for using for meditation, and you will feel like at times you don't feel anything at all. When you feel when you experience some pain in your physical body, and you would simply say, ouch, so my pain is painful, sorry, my knee is painful, and that's a physical pain. At the same time, you feel like sleepy, then all of a sudden you feel you are having a feeling of sleepy, and then you feel lethargic, and then you take a deep breath and once again start dealing with your physical pain and that mental uneasiness, like feeling of sleepy, or the sleepiness. And at that point, you may deal with that as well. At times, you may have already experienced that, as opposed to the first few minutes of your meditation, and there at which there were multiple millions of feelings. Now 2 hours later, you are hardly having any emotion or feeling, and then you are absolutely relaxed. And then at times, all of a sudden, you feel some sudden rapture or deep joy, and that joy is due to the fact that you are not feeling anything at all. Most probably, that is, unless you are enlightened, that is the closest and simplest experience of emptiness, that your mind is empty of any feelings, empty of any emotions, empty of any mental tendencies, empty of any memories. And I have experienced that multiple times. And then the next moment again, when I'm not experience any feelings, because my mind is now totally empty of feelings, so that the next moment I feel some deep joy or rapture. And that moment, what happens to me is, wow, I'm so happy. And that moment, what happens is that rapture or the deep joy is a feeling. Again, so that gap disappears, so that I am back in my feelings. And then when I'm enjoying that rapture or that deep feeling, what happens to me then is, then I start feeling some pain in my physical body, or I start feeling sleepy again. Then what happens? I become sad. Why? A moment ago, I had a feeling of deep joy, and it's gone. It has vanished. It has disappeared. Now, a new feeling of lethargy, so sleepiness or physical pain has arisen. That again, I am back in my mind is set back in flow of feelings, emotions, etc., etc. But again, in case you don't worry and see, you simply look at the arising, how your mind was empty of any feelings, maybe for a nanosecond or so, however short, however long that experience lasted. And then what happens to you? And then you had the feeling of joy. And then what happens is that disappeared. And then you are now having some physical pain. Wow, the physical pain has created another feeling. And then what happens is, so then you look at those two individual feelings in terms of their identity. What is the identity of the first feeling? The feeling of rapture or joy, deep joy. Well, that is a wholesome feeling. And what about the second feeling, feeling of sleepiness or lethargy? Well, that is by definition, it's a feeling of, it's an unwholesome, negative feeling. And then when you see the feeling of rapture as a, how to say, positive feeling, and then the next feeling of sleepiness as a negative feeling, and then what you are supposed to do is you stop comparing the two feelings. As long as you compare, that leads to the creation of more negative feelings. At that point, what you do is you simply see how that positive feeling of rapture arose, and it lasted a few seconds, and then it fell away, and it went away, disappeared. And then and then when you stop that, and then you make up your mind, well, that was a positive feeling. Well, it didn't last that long. Well, that's the nature. And then you define, well, why am I sad? Because I couldn't retain that feeling of deep joy longer. Then why? And then at the same time, then what happens is, why am I worried more? Is that now there's a new feeling that has arisen. That feeling is out of my sleepiness, lethargy. Well, that is a negative feeling. And then so I need to get rid of that negative feeling, but it doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear that fast. Why? The moment a negative feeling arises, and then you start hating that. And then what happens is you start feeding that negative energy with the negative, more negative feelings that you create. You start so energizing that negative feeling. That's why it stays much longer. And then whereas in the case of the previous feeling of deep joy or rapture, and then you were you were anxious about that feeling, so that it didn't remain that long, it disappears. Yes. And then when it comes to yes, Josh, yeah, you can, yeah, what about changing the meditation object to joy, rapture when it arises? Yes, if you can just observe each and, yeah, that's a fascinating question. Actually, that's the next thing I was going to talk about. So as different feelings arises, if you change your, it's okay to change your meditation posture. Meditation posture at this point is probably you need to change your physical body, physical posture, in case so it is a distraction. Or maybe you need to, if you are doing breath meditation, you can change your breath to metta or something. Or maybe you can meditate on Vedananupassana. That is the best, especially Vedananupassana. Vedananupassana, as you know, how to say, that is one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So the Vedananupassana is the frame or the foundation of mindfulness of feeling. So feeling as the foundation of mindfulness. And based on that, you can simply so start meditating on so that different feelings now lining up to occur. Now it was a rapture, then lethargy, and then disappointment, despair, some feelings due to physical ailment, and so on and so forth. Then you can keep so on that, and then what happens is when you when we meditate, why we find it difficult to achieve our udayabbe jnana, or the knowledge of rising and falling, is when as a certain feeling occurs, we define it and we qualify it. So we attribute some quality, some value into that feeling. That is where the problem is. If we can just leave those feelings unqualified without attributing any quality or value at that point, so that you can achieve udayabhaya much faster. Yes, Carl, yeah. Isn't a meditation object generally used as an anchor to keep us from being swept away by our thoughts? We were to switch from our breath, for example, neutral to joy and rapture. Wouldn't that not be helpful if it is distracted us or got attached? Yes, it is. Yeah, that's a technique, and I do that a lot too. And then there are multiple techniques. So that is where you use different. Now this is how mindfulness is defined in the Satipatthana Sutta, or in the discourse on the four foundations of mindful. Let me first get it in Pali. So Gate Tite Nisin. Isn't that me? It's autocorrect. Tite. Nisinne Sutte Jagarite Bahasite Tunhi Bhave Sampadanakari. Now, this is the definition of mindfulness as it occurs from in the Satipatthana Sutta, or the discourse on the four foundations of mindfulness. And then as you continue, when your meditation, even as you change your meditation object and you still find it difficult to continue, and at that point you may change, you can switch your posture. And this is how it is explained. Gate, when going, walking. Tite, when standing. Nisinne, when you are seated, when you are sitting. Sutte, when you are asleep. Jagrite, when you are awake. Bahasite, when you are speaking, talking. Tunhi bhave, when you are silent. Sampajanakari hoti, you remain mindful of all those six postures, six conditions. And those are the six conditions that we remain mindful of. So that when you find it difficult to focus. Yeah, I like that Kyle's word distracted also got attached to. Yes, distraction and attachment. Now, whenever there's a happy feeling or a positive feeling, and that leads to attachment, and we get attached to it. Whenever there's a feeling that we don't like, and then we feel like getting distracted from it. And then, but actually when it comes to the Buddhist definition of attachment, there is two kinds of attachment, as we know. So the active and passive attachment. Now, when you are having a happy feeling, of course, it is understood that it is an active attachment because you love that. And at the same time, when you are going through some painful feelings during meditation, or maybe when you are not meditating, so that what happens is, the moment a painful feeling arises, a negative feeling arises, a feeling that you don't like arises, what happens is, and then you start hating that feeling. That is called, that you hate that feeling means you are still attached to that feeling, but then but your attachment is passive. So, and then you are in a battle. You are in a battle with that attachment. You are battling now because that is a passive attachment. You feel like getting rid of that feeling as soon as possible, and that would lead to the further, further occurrence, further arising of similar negative feelings. So once again, the problem is based on our that subconsciously maintained sense of permanence. We hope, consciously or subconsciously, we want to only to have happy feelings in our mind, only to see fascinating or positive things with our eyes, only to hear nice things with our ears, only to smell good smell with our nose, only to eat the food or drinks that we'll only love, and then only to touch with our skin whatever the tangible things that bring us some happiness. But now that is what we basically want. Because of that, so whenever a sankhara or a dynamics of experience is negative, or that we don't like that sankhara, and at that point, what happens is, and we intensify, we get those feelings intensified, thereby paving the way for so the continued arising of similar or the same or similar negative feelings. Any questions thus far? Because I was compelled to explain the two terms, even though it took me some time, because we need to look at those two terms, Udaya and Vaya, in the meditational approach, from a meditational angle. So it is the thing that you, and based on this description, you may see that so the Udayabhya is very difficult to see. Now, that's another statement when it comes to see. Uppa, let me type in uppercase. Uppado Panya. Uppado Panyayati. Vayo Panyayati. Tetas Anya Tattam. Now, this is another canonical statement. Uppado Panyayati. Vayo Panyayati. Titassa Anyatattam Panyayati. This is another statement that explains, that defines Udaya and Vaya, arising and falling, knowledge of seeing things as they arise and fall away. Uppado Panyayati means there you see the arising. Upada means birth or arising. Vayo panyayati, and you see the vayo means decay or falling, passing away, falling. Panyayati, you see that. And then you also see titassa anyatattam panyayati. So titassa anyatattam panyayati is, titassa means whatever now existence for the moment. Repeat, titassa, whatever is now existence within a given moment. Anyatattam panyayati. Anyatatta means it goes through change, so that so it doesn't really stay in the same condition, and it changes quickly. So this means things arise, things fall, and then there's nothing really called existence. In Buddhism, existence is not something that actually is there. Existence is that there's only change. Change occurs, existence does not occur. So that phrase is, if when you translate this uppado panyayati, vayo panyayati, titas anyatattam panyayati into layman's language, so that change occurs, existence does not occur. Change occurs, existence does not occur. And to understand the impermanence of happy and sad feelings, every minute, moment is one. Exactly, yes, yes, Tochita. So, see how difficult this is? Now, theoretically, or while in meditation or theoretically, we can just understand this reality. Now, and we know by experience, but again we forget. We are forgetful of that nature again. And then, yes, that is Linda's comment. I like to observe and see the feeling like a cloud that I see, and then the wind of my breath blows it away. So then when another cloud, thought, feeling arises, comes into view, I will do the same view. Yes, that's right. Now, everyone's based on, everyone's, how to say, observation. What we is it, actually we catch the moment. That's one catch, live in the moment. Catch or live in the moment. You catch the moment, and that is what we miss all the time. We see a whole fake flow or stream of fake flow or stream of existence. Existence is fake. What actually occurs is change. Change occurs. Changes, and that's another funny statement. Everything is impermanent except the reality that everything is impermanent. It's a philosophical statement. Same with non-existence and permanence, Josh. Yes, that's right. Yeah. See, you look at this Udaya and Vaya arising and falling in a way that you do understand, and I do understand. But again, when it comes to our actual life, our life is essentially emotional. Our life is emotional. So that's why we are emotional beings. We sensationalize, and then we look at life situations, our mental conditions, our social conditions in an emotional way. So that is why we find it difficult to practice or acquire what is called this Udaya and Vaya. Before we continue, do you have any questions? Yeah, Josh is just typed in two truths. Yeah, remember we did talk about the two truths during the last class. So that you know the two levels of truth, right? Conventional and ultimate or absolute. You look at the same object. Remember we did talk about the mountain analogy, that Buddha and Upananda going to see a mountain. I think everyone remembers that analogy that we discussed in class. So we look at the same. So this is my bottle of water I'm drinking. So now, this is a particular brand, and then quite naturally, when I grab the bottle of water, one of the first things, most probably even before I open the cap, open it, I would just see the brand name. And then as my eyes capture the brand name, what occurs the next is I might tend to compare this brand with another brand that I know. By comparing, after comparing, I would find this brand worse or better. Now, what happens? For the moment, I was emotional. Whenever we compare things, and then by nature, in reality, we have an emotional approach to realities, sankharas. So that blocks us, that distracts us from Udaya and Vaya, rising and falling. So yes, men the two truths in reference to Udaya and Vaya. Yes, Josh. So let's take a few minutes to look at Udaya and Vaya in terms of the two truths. Now, what is the conventional truth? Conventional truth is that whatever we experience, we attribute a certain degree of value and essence to those things. And so that 20 people observing a flower would comment on the flower, would define the flower, would make some conclusions, would make some assumptions of that single flower in multiple ways. That is because 20 people are attributing a different degree of value and essence to that flower. At the same time, those objects that we see that we are now defining come with a built-in value as well. For example, in general, a rose is more expensive than many other flowers. An orchid is more expensive than many other flowers. So that is because certain things come with a certain built-in value. Anything would come with a certain value built-in. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with that built-in value. But the real problem starts when we attribute a certain degree of value, new value or essence to that object. At this point, to a rose that 20 people are observing, and then there could be among the 20 of us, there could be someone who doesn't like roses, and they only like some other flowers like orchids, maybe carnation, maybe magnolia, maybe lotus. maybe any other flowers. So at that point, to that one person, rose is looks less impressive. To everyone, the rest of the 19 people, so that the rose is the most impressive flower. Then what happens is, why is that? Why there's a difference? Why there's a clear difference in observation? That is because we are observing the rose based on the conventional truth, first level of truth. Whereas if that blocks us seeing the how to say, the true nature of our feelings, or the true nature, or the uday and vaya of any reality. Whereas what if you use so the second level of truth, that is absolute truth, or the ultimate truth. When you look at the rose, when 20 of us are observing, let's now we start observing the same rose, so in light of the ultimate truth, or the absolute truth. While conventional truth is attachment based, ultimate truth is based on non-attachment. So that because we are looking at the rose from the angle of ultimate truth, and because there's no attachment, so that thanks to the absence of attachment, so that we would, all the 20 of us would see the rose the same way. How? The same way is, well, this is a rose, and so this is beautiful today. By tomorrow, this would have died out, fallen and died out, faded away, died out, fallen. But today this flower is beautiful. But if we go back to our conventional angle and look at, again revisit the rose, and then we would say, whosoever, and then we would say, I want, and we would think, okay, this rose is beautiful. We want this to last at least few more days. And then we walk back to the rose in 2 days time, and we would see the flower already died. It has faded, and it has fallen, it has died out. And then now that we are seeing the flower, then we are now observing the flower dead, then what happens? We become sad. Why are we sad? Because we had been observing the flower from the angle of conventional truth, which involves attachment, which involves our sensory need, sensory urge to keep looking at the rose, so that thinking that the rose must stay beautiful like many more days to come. And then again, that is the conventional angle. And then like 3 days later, we go back to the rose, and we see the flower has died out or fallen and faded. And at that point, we now, every one of us now is observing the flower from the angle of the ultimate truth. None of us would become sad. Why? Because we knew 3 days ago that the flower is never going to stay beautiful like it was during the first day. And at that point, and we are looking at the dead flower, so that without no attachment. At that point, no attachment, non-attachment. Non-attachment means we don't have any biases, pro or against, and then we wouldn't cry that the flower was expensive but it didn't last that long, and we would never curse the flower vendor, because they cheated on us, and then he told that would last at least 1 week, and so on and so forth. So that is the difference. But again, in our day-to-day life, the way we look at things is from an angle of conventional truth. Conventional truth involves our it knows our biases, our justification, our need, and then so that is why the world is full of problems in our eyes. The world is a problematic place to us. Why? Because we don't look at the world just like the enlightened people do. Enlightened people, they just look at the world as the world constantly changes. So the world constantly changes, so that in fact the world does not exist. Every moment, every given moment, every nanosecond, every split of a second, whichever the smallest time unit that you use, the world, my physical body, my mind, my selfhood, the external world, the physical world, the world in my perception, all constantly changes. But to us, why we become sad? Because to us, the world constantly exists. That is what that's how Buddha explains the two terms. To average people like me, the world constantly, every moment does exist. But actually, what is the actual reality is, that is the conventional reality. The conventional reality, the world does exist. But the absolute or the ultimate reality is the world does not actually exist, but it does actually change every moment. Any questions? Probably we can have a little discussion too, in case we have questions. We're going to take a break at 10 o'clock. We have 20, how to say, it's 9:37. Did I miss anything about Udaya and Vaya? Because this is one of the critical lessons. Knowledge of Udaya and Vaya is one of the most important, how to say, teachings in Buddhism. And then you will see it can take on different directions. On emptiness, on no soul. In the afternoon, we're going to talk later we will talk about the three signs of existence in detail. But this description of Udaya and Vaya is the background. This is like a prelude to our discussion on the three signata, three signs of existence. Now, when it comes to the three signs of existence, the lakhana, as you know, the lakhana. Ti means three. Lakhana in Pali. Lakshana in Sanskrit means sign or mark. Sign or mark. Also, that we use that the other classical term signata. It's a sign. Now, three signs of existence. They are called the lakhana, three signs of existence. Now, how to understand existence? Before that, we need to ask ourselves another question. I was talking about this bottle of water. Now, as you think, does this bottle of water, this water bottle exist? To me, it does. Because it is tangible, I can touch it, I feel it, it's plastic, it's thin plastic, and it has a cap, and of course I can drink from it. Now, this does exist. But the problem is not the fact that the bottle does exist. Of course, the water is there, and then and when Buddha was hungry, And he would simply say he was hungry and he was thirsty. He wanted food. He wanted water. And then so that conventionally we do exist. We have feelings. But when it comes to understanding Udayappa, because is that always our notion of existence is biased. The only way to get rid of that biased notion of existence, we need to look at existence in terms of 3 marks, lakhana. 3 marks, lakhana, signs. It is only in light of these 3 signs that we can understand existence. So we do exist. At the same time, that existence is not actual existence. It is simply the change. The change occurs all the time. In order to understand the change, we need to look at any chosen object or any reality. It could be a mental reality like a feeling or emotion like jealousy, anger, lust, or it could be a physical reality like my physical body. So my finger is injured, or I have some pain in my knee, or I have toothache, and then I have headache. Or at the same time, I just bought some furniture and they were too expensive, but quality-wise they are much low. And then so I have a house, I have a car, I have a job, and then there are multiple life situations. You look at everything, and then so that every time you look at any reality, any situation, to you, you start observing, looking at that reality with deeply rooted need or urge that it should only make me happy, never make me sad. So now that is where the problem, that's where the problem of observation is. But enlightened people, they don't have a problem with this water because they don't do relative thinking. And then they don't, if I am enlightened as I'm grabbing this water, the bottle, and opening and drinking from it, I don't compare, as I'm drinking, I don't compare it with any other brand. It is simply the water, and I need to quench my thirst. That's why I'm drinking. So at that point, in the case of an enlightened person, such problem doesn't occur. Why? Because an enlightened person's mindset is based on non-attachment. There's no justification. There's no bias. But we average people need to start the process of seeing things as they truly are. Remember, just yesterday we did talk about 2 things. What is that? Anyone remember the 2 Pali words, 2 types of understanding? Remember, anubodha, inferred, and pativeda, penetrated. Just remind us of these 2 terms because they are also that pair of terms also corresponds to this udaya and vaya. Anubodha, or inferred understanding, and pativeda, this one, not the first one I spelled wrong. Pativeda understanding, or penetrated understanding. Now, and so far we have come across 3 pairs, udaya and vaya, and then conventional truth, and we looked at udaya and vaya in light of conventional and ultimate truth. And you can also look at that in terms of Anubodha understanding and Pativeda understanding. Anubodha understanding involves, again, it involves attachment. Pativeda understanding does not involve attachment. It involves only non-attachment. And then when it comes to emptiness, now this bottle of water, now I still have 3/4 of the water, and then by the way, I'm a little thirsty. See what happened? When I was holding the water, I was already thirsty, but I took a moment to speak, and then I said thirsty, and then I had a sip. So then what happens? This is not my favorite brand though, but as I was thirsty, I only wanted water. That is not because I didn't think about the brand, not because I am enlightened, or not because I am employed, I am using Pativeda understanding, but because my thirst was so intense that I wanted water, any kind of water. At that point, it is not Pativeda understanding, because of which I didn't think about the brand, but because I was so thirsty that somehow I wanted some water, whatever the brand is. So, and at that point, my Anubodha, inferred understanding, was so intense that I made up my mind to drink the water, even though it's not my favorite brand. What if I had 2 bottles of water, with this one and another one, which is my favorite? Then of course, simply because there's a choice, I will grab the other bottle. I would have grabbed the other bottle and would have drunk from that bottle. But there's no choice here. Because there was no choice, then I thought that this is the only thing available to me. That is not actually understand. It's not even, how to say, it's not my understanding. It is all about my justification. I justified that this is the water available, so there's no choice but I drink it. So this is again, and then another story, I think you remember that. Remember the story of 2 monks eating a sour mango and then a sweet mango? Everyone may remember the story. That one laywoman invited 2 monks to her house for, and then she had some mango. First, she cut open a mango that was raw; it wasn't ripe, and then he offered 1 piece to. Exactly. Yeah, that's why. No preference. That's a no preference approach. Then what happens? The first monk was enlightened, the second monk wasn't. And then it was the sour mango. And then as the enlightened monk took a bite, and he didn't make a face, where the second monk, when he took a bite, he made a face. And then second time, then a minute later, she cut open another mango, offered each one a piece, and the first monk, he took a bite and he ate it without making any face. And the second monk, and he took the first bite, and then he said, "You should have never offered that sour mango. Now this is the sweet one. This is the one I only like." See, at that point, what happened? In the case of the first monk, there was no preference. Yes, as Lee say, no preference. But we are always no choice, no preference. And then at that point, if we observe or analyze the mindset of the first monk, who first ate a sour mango, a piece of sour mango, and then a piece of sweet mango, to him, there was no difference between the 2 mangoes. It's a different story that he tasted sour, he tasted sweet, but there was no complaint. And that he didn't value He didn't value the sour nature of the mango. He didn't value the sweet nature of the mango either. To him, there was no better mango. Whereas in the case of the second monk, he had the preference. That's why, as he took a bite uh, uh, from the piece of sweet mango, he told the lay woman, "You should have never offered that sour mango. I hate it. This is the mango. This is the one I like." So this is what happens, the preference. Yeah. So that being said, any questions? No. So and then just go back to that Joe's how to say observation. Maybe for more advanced class where phenomena arise from how long they seem to exist, how this is determined, and where phenomena pass away too, and the perception of how long this all lasts for each phenomena, etc. That's right. Yeah. Actually, we already did touch upon this. Actually, you are advanced enough to understand. Actually, this is where we use bhavana. We also need a meditative approach. That's right. Yeah. Me too. Because when I was a child, I would only eat sour mango with salt. But especially when I am when I just when I was a child, at times I use it. I would crush. I will cut it in a piece and then crush it with chili powder and salt, and it's mouth watering when I remember this. And even today, I don't like sweet mango that much. I like sour mangoes. So yes, we would eat both. Still prefer the sweet one. That is again, as Lee said, that's a preference. Yeah. So you can have a choice always, but the real problem is emotional here. In case you don't, let's say you get what you like. For example, you get a sour mango and a sweet mango, and so you can have a preference. You would also eat the sour one, and then you will eat, for sure you will eat the sweet one. But for many days to come, and you will only get sour mango, and then there will be no preference, and you will still eat, but you may at times think about the sweet mango because you haven't had any sweet mango for days. So that is where the problem is. We can still continue to eat both or either, but when our choice is not available, when our preference is not available, that is where the problem starts. That is when and where the problem starts. So that is where we need, at that point, if we can use the teaching of Udaya and Vaya, Udayabhaya, so that we can overcome that problem. But again, we are how to say, driven by experience. We are driven by experience. So we need, so that's when the three timelines, memory, moment, dream. So memory, that is our experience. Moment, what we are going through now. Dream, what we want to. These are just layman's terms. They are not standard canonical terms. Memory, moment, and dream. And then every time we experience something, we are fundamentally driven by our past experience, or that is necessarily based on our memory. And that is when enlightened people do not, they only refer to memory in order to elevate themselves. Enlightened people, they don't see much value in memory. So they recommend that we only value our memories for further elevation of ourselves. In our effort to, how to say, elevate ourselves spiritually, cognitively, we must value our memories. If we use our memories just to downgrade ourselves, just to discourage ourselves, at that point, you further get away from Udayabhaya. And when it comes to dreams again, and then so you are not ready to face the moment, because the moment is not it's not a preferable moment. You don't like the moment. The moment at this point in terms of the situation that you are now going through at this point. And then as you are now halfway through the moment, and you feel like to getting away from it, walking away from them. And then you would say, okay, the next time I would never feel this. I would never encounter this ever again. At that point, your whole point of reference is your future. That is the dream, memory. What I mean by a dream is not the dream, but the future. Now, memory is our past. Moment means the present. And dream means our future. Now, most of the time, that's the last obstacle that we must touch upon here. So what blocks us from achieving Udayabhaya, looking at the realities in light of Udayabhaya, Udaya and Vaya, is that we only use our past, that is memory, our experience, and or our dreams or our future as the point of reference in defining our existence. That's where the problem is. So we did exist, well, I didn't like the way I have been so far, or in case I like it and I'm going through a worse situation, well, I just want to go back to my past and live there because that is way better than the present situation. Or you would say, okay, well, my present situation, I don't like this to be in this situation, and so that I need to get away from this, walk away from this, and I can't wait until tomorrow, so that because at that point your whole point of reference is your future, your dreams, and then so we always run between our past, our memories, and our dreams. We constantly do that. At that point, and Buddhist, I don't remember exact reference where it is. I think as far as I remember, it is in the Middle and Saint Majjhima Nikaya. There is no escape from the sensual world, even if we try to escape. There's no escape from the sensual world, even if we try to escape. And that's from the Majjhima Nikaya. So I don't remember the exact sutra. Now, this explains our struggle. Now, why we fail to see Udayabhaya? Because we maintain preferences. We have our favorite things. And then when there is no choice, of course, we become sad. And when too many choices are available, we would freely and happily enjoy a little bit of everything. But again, there's no choice at all. And then we would define the moment situation based on our past memories, or define the moment based on what we want to do in the future dreams. So Buddha called this, there's no escape from the sensual world, because our world is necessarily sensual. It is sensory, if I use a better term, sensory world, because sensual also means like it means romantic, sexual, and that feeling as well, probably sensory world. sensory world. So there's no escape from the sensory world because our world is based on our sense faculties. That's where the problem. But in the case of enlightened people, their observation is sensory, but that sensory observation is free from attachment, so that they don't have a problem. That's why even when Buddha is hungry, thirsty, he wouldn't complain. Whereas I would do, because I'm sensory too, but I'm not using non-attachment. I still have attachment to my, as long as I'm thirsty, I have a passive attachment to my thirst. That's why I'm keep saying I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. So that when the situation is negative, even if the situation is negative, I'm still attached to it. That is passive attachment. When the situation is positive, now I'm getting a full plate of food and then I'm eating it, I'm happy, but that is positive attachment. So that being said, it's 10, 1 past. Let's take a break for 15 minutes. See you in 15 minutes. Let's start with, is everyone back?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, let me type in something first. A statement, a canonical statement of the three signata that defines them. Yang yadanichang, yang anichang. Tada. Now, this is a canonical statement. Yadanicham tan dukkhang, yang dukkhang tadanatta. So, yadanicha, yang anichang, whatever is impermanent, tan dukkhang, that brings whatever is impermanent, yang anichang. What is impermanent, or whatever what is impermanent, that should be correct translation. What is impermanent, tan dukkhang, brings unsatisfactoriness. Yang dukkhang, what is suffering, so what is of suffering, what is unsatisfactory, of therein, there's nothing to be taken as permanent, or that's as self. That is tang anatta. Anatta is non-self, no self. So this is a canonical statement. Now, just like the idea of middle path, Majjhima Patipada. The teaching of three signata of existence, three signs of existence, Tilakkana, wasn't heard before the birth of the Buddha. So this is another teaching that is not pre-Buddhist. It is Buddhist. Now, of course, Buddha's teaching on Tilakkana, drew lots of enemies. Now, Indian society has always been largely theistic, because in general, in Indian religion, it is Brahma. So the mainstream Indian religion is theocentric or God-centered, so that the society is theistic. In a vast theistic culture, theistic religious culture like in India, when Buddha made a statement that even Brahma is not permanent, and in that statement drew lots of enemies, and then Buddha created lots of opponents for himself, so that for the first time, as when you look into the religious history of India, you come across this idea of the three marks of existence, or Tilakkana, for the first time in Buddhism, not in pre-Buddhist Indian religion. So you could still say Jainism. We had lots of discussions on Jainism during the previous course. Jainism is non-theistic. Jainism is non-theistic. So are the six heretic teachers. They were also anti-Brahminical. Any religion in general that is anti-Brahminical in India is non-theistic. But it was the Buddha as a Shramana. I think now you are reminding yourself the two kind of traditions. Shramana tradition. Buddha was a Shramana, so was Mahavira, the founder of Jainism, so were the six heretical teachers, so were many other teachers. Whosoever was anti-Brahminical. So it was, they were against, they were essentially, basically non-theistic. Didn't the Buddha say, as long as a teaching potentially not taught by him directly, even at the three marks of existence, it is a good teaching and in accordance with the Dharma? Don't remember exactly. I don't remember that either. Yeah, that's true. Exactly. Absolutely. Yes. It doesn't have to be the Buddha. It could be anyone, as long as as long as that teaching, that statement, whatever, that idea, so that addresses the three tilakkana, three marks of existence, it's a good teaching. Yeah. The highest form of nirvana, I would say salvation. Salvation that the pre-Buddhist India had known was the three formless worlds, Arupa, Brahma, Loka, right? And you know that. Arupa, Brahma, Loka. That was the highest, and then to Buddha, all the teaching that were already in place in India did not teach permanent, or we can use the word permanent, ultimate salvation. That was Buddha's assumption. And then none of the teachings that were contemporary with 6th century BC society so did teach what is called ultimate salvation, permanent salvation. Now, the highest kind of salvation that the pre-Buddhist India did know was the three arupa lokas, the three Brahma worlds of the formless. And then, as you know, within the sensual sphere, according to Buddhist cosmology, in Indian cosmology, there are the universe has three spheres. Sensual sphere, that is where the 4 hells are. 1 human world is, 6 heavens are. And then above the sensual sphere is the form sphere, that is within which are 16 Brahma worlds. And then above the sensual, above the form sphere is the formless sphere. So according to Buddhist and in general Indian cosmology, these are the 3 spheres of existence. First one is sensual, that is where we are. We always are in search of sensual happiness. We are always looking for a chance to gratify our senses. So hence sensual sphere. So we are sensual beings. And then when we go to the next sphere, that is form sphere. Form at this point means physical. That is the 16 Brahma worlds. In the Brahma worlds, Brahma still, they have feelings, but they don't have sensual feelings. But they still have one thing. They still have attachment to body. They still have attachment to physical body. They don't have sensual feelings. They do have feelings, only spiritual feelings, but they still have, if they are also a kind of emotional to a certain extent, so that they are not always spiritual. They would have conceit, they would have negative feelings as well, but their purpose is not to gratify their sense. They are never in search of sensual pleasures, but they still think about their physical existence, their physical body. So that's why they have attachment to their physical body. Then what happens? And then when we explain cosmology in a Buddhist sense and or in a general Indian religious sense, so that you go to Brahma world having earned some jhana, or meaning spiritual trance, so that you go to Brahma world. So that let's say, as a human being, you practice deep meditation, and then you somehow suppress your sensual feelings, sensual desires, and then you are never free from what is called bhava tanha, as we talked about yesterday. Bhava tanha. What is bhava tanha again? Bhava tanha is a desire for existence. So even though as meditators, we are suppressing our sensual desires, and we find it difficult to get rid of our the tendency of bhavatanha, our craving for existence, because you feel like coming back. The only thing you hate is that you never want to be sensual, but you need to exist. In your subconscious mind, you naturally, automatically maintain a sense of come back one day after this lifetime. So thanks to those jhanas, you get reborn into the form sphere as one of a Brahma. So that, and you still have attachment to your physical body. What if you meditate and you don't have any, you still have, what to say, you still have want to, how to say, stay and come back, but without the physical body, without going through all aging and decay and old age and sickness. It is like, it is kind of related to vibhava tanha as well. Vibhava means you don't want, you want to stay, but you never want to go through aging. And then you hate the physical body. Why? Sooner or later, the physical body decays as well. It is subject to decay. What if you do exist without a physical body? Well, that should be fascinating, because there's no physical body to decay. And that is when you are then motivated to earn formless jhanas. I think we made the whole list of jhanas. Probably you can, they are not that relevant at this point, but you could go back to last semester's class notes and see that we talked about Nya, and then say the four, how to say, the four worlds of the formless, the formless jhanas, formless Brahma worlds. And then, so that then you get reborn into one of the four formless worlds, where your mind gets reborn, and then so that you can still last, you can still exist without a physical body, because it is simply, well, even in sensual heavens, your mind is, your body is mind-made. The only difference is you have a mind-made sensual body, whereas in Brahma world, you have the mind-made or transparent body, but it is not sensual, and it's not, it doesn't require any sensual pleasures. And then, so when you go to, I mean, in one of the formless worlds, you don't have the physical body, and then you don't think as well, and your mind is frozen with the help of jhanas. I think we did talk about this, jhanas. Yes, vibhava tanha. Vibhava tanha is desire for and let me say that vibhava tanha. I think we did talk about vibhava tanha yesterday, right? Vibhava tanha, desire for non-existence. Non-existence, because vibhava tanha is defined in different ways. Now, existence is problematic. Why? Because the body is subject to decay, illness, and aging and sickness, and finally death. What if we do exist without existing? That is called non-existent existence. And we have a craving for non-existence. What way? Non-existence, the way all beings, all things do exist. And then, but again, so that it looks like you never want to, you understand Vibhava Tanna in two ways. So Vibhava, non-existence, never to come back to existence. And the only kind of, so that is not Nirvana yet. Why? Because you have more fear than Brahmas. So that because you are scared of aging, scared of illness, scared of death. Unless there is physical body, you don't die. So that is when with jhanas, you freeze your mind, your consciousness, that's the correct word, consciousness for a long period, for an indefinite period of time. So that that's what happened to you when you move to one of those four formless worlds in the afterlife. And two, Indian pre-Buddhist Indian religious people, that was the highest kind of nirvana that they knew. But there are two kinds of salvations, as you know, right? Because while some okay, sorry, I see, it was private. Brahma Sahavyata. Remember that term, Brahma Sahavyata? Union with Brahma, going back to Brahma. Brahma created you so that eventually you will go back to him. Now, this was one idea of salvation. And there was another ascetic idea of salvation, that is that there are four worlds that do exist beyond Brahma, beyond the world, beyond Brahma the creator. And they are also Brahma worlds. At that point, you see that clear distinction between the Hindu idea of salvation. One idea is that you go back to Brahman, the creator, one day. The second idea is there's no such going to Brahma, but you go to a formless Brahma world, and then you remain there for an indefinite period of time. But it is the Buddha who says it's an indefinite period of time. Those who believe that the formless worlds are the permanent places of salvation, to them is not an indefinite period of time. It is the time that they would go there and remain forever. But not necessarily again. There were some gurus, some teachers who had already achieved the formless jhanas, and they knew that they would, upon death, they would get reborn into one of those four formless worlds, and then it would be difficult for them to come back. For example, the ample example is, as we know, Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana's guru, right? Asita Kala Devala, right? You know that famous story that Siddhartha, Suddhodana wanted to show his son Siddhartha to his guru, Asita. And then, so that is when Asita predicted that first, after some prediction, he predicted something, and then first he laughed out of happy that Siddhartha would become the Buddha one day. And then he cried because by the time Siddhartha becomes the Buddha, he would be in one of those, he would have been reborn into one of those formless worlds, so that he would be able to return to the human world. And then, but what Buddha did was, Buddha counted both ideas of salvation. First, Brahma Sahavyata, union with Brahma. And then Buddha said, Brahma himself is impermanent. So his life is not permanent. One day he will have to come back to sensual world, having lived out of his jhana. And then, so instead of saying that Brahma is not a creator, Buddha simply asked the people to consider, to look at Brahma as being impermanent as well. And the second idea, and Buddha countered the other idea also, that the formless rebirth in formless worlds is not salvation either. So going back to Brahman is not salvation, and getting reborn into the formless worlds is not salvation. So he counted both. And then for the first time in the Indian religious history, Buddha taught this teaching of Tilakkana. Okay, question. Okay, if you are born into the formless realm where you are essentially frozen, while is there any active cognition? There's no active cognition. I am guessing the consciousness can practice and work towards enlightenment while you are there. Correct. You are absolutely right. Do you create karma while you are there? No, you don't create any karma at all, because your consciousness is not active, it's not functional. Or is your karma frozen? Your karma is also frozen with the mindset. Everything is frozen because karma is frozen. Because in order for karma to return, the mind should be active. Because Chetanaham Bhikkhave Kammang, there's no new karma being created as well. Because Chetana is karma. So your intention is karma. There's no way to create new intentions because your mind is frozen. And then you already have so much multiple karma deposited in your consciousness, but those karmas cannot function. These karmas cannot come back, return, or cannot get activated because your consciousness is frozen. Yes, excellent question, Kyle. Thank you. Any questions? I like that. Actually, that is like a conclusion, Kyle. I love that statement. Welcome. So, any questions before we continue? Now, what are the first thing is anicca. Let's define the first word. Na. Na nicca. That's the etymology of the word. Nicca. Nicca is permanent, forever, eternal. That's what anicca means. Permanent, forever. Sorry, I misspelled forever. Eternal. Na nicca, anicca. Na means not permanent. So now let's go back to the statement. Whatever is impermanent, so that brings us suffering, unsatisfactoriness. Why we suffer? Why we are unhappy? Why we feel unfulfilled? Why we are unsatisfactory? Because we fail to have a permanent. We fail to keep ourselves permanently happy forever. So that is what Buddha meant by anicca, na nicca. Usually you say things are not, everything is impermanent. And then if you just look at your own life, your lifestyle, your selfhood, it's not going to be forever. It changes, just like Udayabhaya. When you look at your life in terms of Udayabhaya, it changes all the time. Change occurs so fast, so quick, that you do see that you do live, do exist. It's like the continuous illumination of light, continuous creation of light from the bulb. Light in my room, my living area, living room. And then, but actually, there's a gap between each energy particle burning, thereby creating light. But we don't see that gap. We don't see that emptiness in between. So that we believe, we assume, we believe that life does exist. And then as a result, so that we automatically believe that life is there, life is existence. So it is like permanent, even though we don't believe that life is permanent on the surface level of our consciousness, in our feelings, in our dormant mind, we do believe. So that and then so that is anicca, no nicha, and except for except for the karma to be reborn into the formless realms and subsequent rebirth. Yes, correct. Yeah. So that karma, jhana is called. I'm just answering. I'm just commenting on George comment. Except for the karma to be born into the formless realms and subsequent rebirth. Yes. So that when you die in a jhanic mind, there's no other, there's no way other karmas trigger you an birth, because your last thought moment would be governed, would be controlled by your jhanic power, jhanic energy. So that is why you get reborn into Brahma world. At that point, no other karma can affect you, affect your last thought moment. So young anicca is Buddha repeatedly made that statement throughout his teachings, that everything is impermanent. So that why because he wanted to, every time possible, he wanted to stress, he wanted to emphasize, he wanted to put the emphasis on the fact that our empirical existence, our life, our existence is necessarily, does necessarily go through change. And our life goes through change. That's what it meant by anicca, no nicha. It can, even within a moment, what about the moment? Can life be permanent or nicha within a given moment? No. Why is that? Because even within a moment, our life is not permanent, because it is conditioned. Even within a moment, even within a split of a second, even within a nanosecond, if you use the smallest time unit, so it is still not a permanent one. It is made of. It is made of. It is conditioned. It is created by a cause and effect. So, for example, it's me, Upananda. Let's say now, I just look at myself within a nanosecond, within a split of a nanosecond. Then, so that the split of a second. So let's say, okay, even though I don't overall exist, do I exist within a given, within a nanosecond? Yes, I am still there, but actually within that moment also, I have gone through change. Why? The very condition, with the very causes and conditions that that created me also constantly change. As you know, these four, now the four elements, right? Apo, there is that is liquidity, and then tejo, that is heat, temperature, tejo, and then vayu, that is mobility, and then patavi, that is earth. or tangibility. Now, our physical body is apo, is sometimes you come across, usually apo is translated as water, but actually it's not water. It is liquidity. Tejo is not fire actually, even though it also means fire. It is heat or temperature. So the cold is, Tejo means both heat and cold, because heat is, the cold is less heat. And Vayu also means wind, but here Vayu is mobility. And Patavi also means earth, but here Patavi is earth, not as the globe, the planet, but as the tangibility of energy. Even the wind, so that a mild, anything, any physical energy, any physical thing would be made of more or less of all these four it's called Maha, calls Mahabhuta, meaning great or basic elements. Mahabhuta, four great elements. So my body is made of liquidity, is made of heat, temperature, mobility, and it is made of earth. So a mild wind contains less earth, whereas a cyclone or a tornado contains more earth, so that it can even wipe out. It can attack any physical object like a mountain or a house, and it can even, destroy physical structure, because it's Patavi nature, it is earthly nature, is so powerful. Now, again, these four Mahabhutas, these four great elements are not permanent. And then, and at this point, you can easily, probably you know better science, you know science much better than I do, see the atomic particles. Atomic particles, like atom itself and its particles and neutrons, protons, and all that. Even an atomic particle is still made of these four Mahabhutas, or this liquidity, mobility, earth, and these four. So that liquidity, heat, mobility, and earth. So that when even the smallest energy particle, the atomic particle, is not permanent, because why? It is made of these four energies, four elements. While the elements themselves are not permanent, anything that creates, anything that makes, anything smallest, as small as an atomic particle, is also impermanent. So finally, in the ultimate analysis, there's nothing permanent, that you don't see anything permanent. And then finally, so the elements themselves, are impermanent. So that, but how we see that everything from the smallest atomic particle up to the biggest thing in the world or in the universe as existing, as manifest to our naked eyes, to our senses, it is because of their relativity. So Albert Einstein, as I mentioned yesterday, Albert Einstein called it relativity. Buddha uses the word causality, mean the same thing. Everything is relative to everything else. So that is why we see that things are existing, things are manifesting, things are seen, things are graspable, things are visible to us, things are tangible. So that's because of the relativity. Now this relativity or causality is understood in terms of another lesson that we're going to have I think in next month, independent origination. There we will discuss that at length. So any questions? Am I teaching you, am I sharing with you too many terms? No, right? Because actually this is fundamental teachings of Buddhism. There are so many multiple Pali terms, but I am trying my best to use them to the least extent. I'm only using these critical key terms. So maybe you have a fair understanding of, mobility, wind. Thank you for, mobility. Mobility is wind. In general terms, liquidity. Mobility is wind. Apo is water. That is liquidity actually. Tejo is heat, but actually it is temperature, both in cool and cold. Vayu is wind. Yes, thank you, Lee. But it is mobility, and then it's earth, then again tangibility. So that so any physical particle would contain more or a lesser degree of these four basic elements. Just like I said, now water contains more mobility, more liquidity, but I can touch water. Okay, thank you. A good question. I can terrorize you by saying, yes, you are supposed to, yes, you have to memorize all this. No, I'm just kidding. Right? You don't have to memorize all these terms. But some of these Pali terms would appear in your, the terror. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But as you go through your class notes, simply focus on these terms for a few seconds. And so just think about the meaning. But even though you don't have to memorize most of these terms, and then they may be among multiple choice questions. For example, this could be a question like this. So that what doesn't belong to, what doesn't belong to the list of four basic elements, and then you would say, then I would simply say ocean. And then for sure, you know that ocean is water, but it is none of the four basic elements. Just familiarize yourself these words, because some of will appear in your midterm exams. But there'll be no big questions, but you are not required to describe these Pali words. So you don't have to worry about that, Kyle and everyone. Any questions? So now we started this discussion. We started the analysis, analyzing the term anicca from our physical body, from our emotions, our mental conditions. Then we came all the way to end up in the ultimate analysis of matter. And so that by touching on atomic particles. And then, so the existence is problematic to us because it brings us suffering and pain. It brings us, because we, again, because of the deeply rooted sense of permanence, we consciously or subconsciously believe that my body must stay the same, youthful, the same way, and then my face should remain younger, and then I must look much younger for my age when I can't hide my aging. And then so when it comes to our existence, it is always problematic. Problematic means we are not happy with our existence. And then existence has many different facets in our conventional existence when it comes to our profession, our cultural, ethnic background, our education, our relationships, our job, our needs, our sensory urges, our emotional comfort, need for company, economic, stability, and all that. So whichever the facet of life, facet of existence that we talk about, it gives us more or less sense of unfulfillment or unsatisfactoriness. And that is because we want a life to be permanent, so that you can very easily argue that you are not ignorant of reality, but you know that life is impermanent. But you easily forget that, then again start complaining, and that confirms that that your argument is not so valid. Why? Otherwise, then you shouldn't complain. You should be able to face the reality, even when so that you are sharing some food with your family, and then someone else jump on and grabs your plate and eats that as well. Of course, we would feel like fighting or hitting that person, because that is your food. You deserve that food. I don't mean that we have to be that compassionate. But as conventional beings, so the only thing we have to stick to is our legal and moral boundaries. Within legal and moral boundaries, within accepted norms, you can enjoy your life, you can live your life, you have a right to complain, so that it is right. But at this point, we are just looking at observing our existence philosophically, psychologically. And so this is a philosophical observation of our existence, not really a convention. But again, when it comes to religion, religion is essentially metaphysical. But still, even though you are not enlightened, you can have a cognitive shift in your observation, in your thinking. So nirvana is the highest cognitive shift. So the higher the shift, you are looking at things from a lesser degree of attachment. The higher you go, your attachment becomes lesser. And then at times we are ornamental. We have ornamental needs, not instrumental needs, right? Sometimes we need to show off, we need things so that because we want to decorate our life. So that's called ornamental needs. But actually instrumental needs means we need to survive. For that, we need things in our life. And then being subjective beings, we have a right to enjoy things. We have a right to earn things, as long as you don't grab, steal, as long as you don't violate accepted, legal and ethical rules and regulations. And then you can enjoy your life. What really matters is, even when Buddha spoke with kings, addressed kings or power or rich people, and then one question Buddha would ask is, Your Majesty, if he's talking to a king or if he's talking to a rich person, whether they are happy. That's one big question. and he would ask rich people whether they are happy. And you don't need to ask that question from the poor people, because they have so many things to deal with. And if the richest person still says that he is at times unhappy, so there's a problem in his approach to his own empirical existence. That is because even though he is the richest person in the world, he doesn't have money cannot buy him happiness. He can instead of thinking of buying happiness with the money, and he needs to make some adjustments. He need to have this called elevated observation. How to say elevated understanding. Again, what is that? Instead of inferred understanding, anubodha, he needs to have the other one is other understanding, pativeda understanding. That is how to say penetrated understanding. And then you could be the richest person, and if you believe that one day you have to leave everything behind and go just like anyone does, and then just like at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should downgrade yourself. Enjoy your life, but keep in the back of the mind that you have to go leave everything behind one day, just like everyone else does. When you start from that understanding, which is that understanding is the lowest level of pativeda, or the penetrated understanding. When you look at your life, your existence with that penetrated understanding, you continue to have your drink, continue to enjoy your party, your travel, vacation, but apparently on the surface level, people wouldn't be able to figure out that you are that understanding, that you really understand the impermanent nature of your life. But that's okay. You don't have to tell the whole world that you are enjoying at the same time that you know what impermanent. You don't have to tell. As long as you know it for yourself, let others say whatever they would like to say. Because I have come across some people, some actors, entertainment people, who have a better understanding of impermanence than some ascetics, than some meditators. While some meditators, spiritual people live in denial, some people enjoying their physical life, with their conventional life to the fullest extent, hardly break down in tears. When things happen, they simply say, ha ha ha, you know what, I knew that this would happen. So whereas in the case of some ascetic people, some spiritual people, maybe living a monastic life, they would break down more often than those people do. Perhaps they live in denial. Such spiritual people live in denial, whereas those social people, they don't live in denial. Not because they have access to comfort, but because they know that one day it's going to change one day, and they will have to leave everything behind. So that is the first one, anicca, that is nirnicca. Second one is dukkha. I don't think you need to define this word again, right? Yesterday we did define this word dukkha, right? Du and ka. Du and ka. Once again, I would like to remind once again, kind reminder. Now, in this coursework, I mean, in the future there will be some handouts. For now, there are no handouts, and you have to read some literature. And from time to time, you get to make a list of some critical Pali and terms with their corresponding English terms. And then, so that some of you may feel insecure, or maybe how to face our exams. Don't worry about that again. Just like I did the last course, I will just make a list of target questions, and then you will have to answer those questions yourself and go through those, study, even if possible, memorize your own answers every time possible, and so that when it comes to this type of learning, what matters is not that you remember everything that you hear, memorize everything that you hear, but you have some contextual understanding. Based on different contexts, you understand these teachings. And then so that, and you are able to apply these teachings into your own life. But when it comes to do exams, then it is only some critical teachings that you have to, that would appear in your questions. So you don't have to worry about exam at all. I guarantee that I will help you through. So that right now you only need to think and revisit these ideas that we discussed in this session. Any questions then? You know, dukkha is right. Tu is negative. Ka is essenceless, no essence that we heard. Dukkha, right? And that's what the general translation is suffering. Now, going back to the statement again, yada nichang, whatever is impermanent, tan dukkhang, that brings us unsatisfactoriness, that brings us a sense of unfulfillment. So that's again, that is dukkha. That is the second, this is the second mark of existence. And we can only understand our existence in terms of these signs or marks. Otherwise, why? That is the fascinating thing to say, because why Buddha call them signata or marks or signs? Because you cannot actually grasp your existence. You can simply identify your existence, define your existence with the help of these three marks, three signs. So otherwise you don't see yourself. There's no single thing called existence. There's the relativity going on. There's causality going on. When the relativity falls apart, there's nothing to be taken. And it is so true on the atomic level as well. There's no atom. Before scientists were able to break the atom into smaller particles, and the atom of the smallest smallest particle of matter, physical energy. But later when it's broken down to other particles, electrons, protons, and things, and and then finally you define the smallest atomic particle, and then you further analyze it, and even the smallest energy atomic particle is made of more or less of those four basic elements: Apo, Tejo, Vayu, and Patavi. And those four elements again, creating the smallest energy particle or the atomic particle, are impermanent, are not permanent by themselves. So the create, what is created is not permanent, and what creates that thing is not permanent either. So there is nothing really permanent. Everything is relative to everything else. Because of this, let's say you can point to this bottle of water, and you can point to this smartphone, and you can point to this pair of glasses, this specs. You can point to this pen, right? So then you can point to this pair of scissors and say, okay, this is a pair of, these are scissors, and this is a bottle of water, plastic bottle full of water, and this is a smartphone, another gadget. This is Bhante Upananda's glasses, reading glasses, and this is the pen. Now these objects confirm that there is me there, out there. So remember, whether or not to speak English as our first language, remember we all wrote that that mandatory essay on myself, and then how we studied English grammar, right? I, mine, I, as the subject, me as the object, and then my ownership, mine ownership, and then myself, being myself, nothing else, I, my, mine, me, myself. So that all these objects that I have just showed you and then briefly described are marks of or the signs of my ownership, signs of my existence, signs of my selfhood. And based on that, based on this pair of glasses, I know, okay, this is Upananda, is me, this is my pair of glasses. And this pair of glasses defines me. And so that you can point to marks or physical marks or signs of existence. But when it comes to these three tilakkana, they are not physical marks of physical marks or signs of existence. They are the absolute marks or signs of existence. Now this bottle is a physical mark or sign of my existence. Okay, this is my favorite water. I'm drinking it, at least for the moment. I can't separate myself, separate myself from this water because I'm a little bit thirsty. So thirst at the moment, for the moment, defines Upananda. Okay, what kind of Upananda is that? What kind of monk is that? He is a thirsty monk. So that defines. So the bottle of water helps me to define myself. So that these physical objects, all our physical belongings are the outer or the external marks or signs of existence. Whereas these three elements, these three signs or marks are the absolute marks of our existence. So for example, you can touch dukkha, you cannot touch impermanence, you cannot touch it is intangible, but you cannot touch a bottle and say this bottle is impermanent. So that is, so we always start with observing the physical object. Look at the physical objects and see whether they are impermanent, whether they are a source of unsatisfactoriness, whether they bring us suffering, a sense of unsatisfactoriness. And then after that, having defined this, analyzed this bottle and seen, having observed this bottle as a physical sign or mark or lakshana of our existence, and then I will leave it behind and then think about the bottle actually. Then I think about anything else and say, okay, not only that bottle of water, but also anything, even my feelings, anything, whether or not I know, both known and unknown things are all impermanent. So just to clarify that these three signs or signata, marks or lakshanas they are absolute marks of existence. Now dukkha, and the last one is anatta. It is na atta. Atta in Pali, in Sanskrit is, you know that, Atma, right? Na atta. Now Atma means self. Atta or Atma is self. There is nothing to be taken. Thank you, yeah, Toshita, yeah. But from an absolute reality point of view, isn't the bodily something that does not exist or exactly, yes. It is not that something that is really existence. So that it is impermanent, yes. So that, but again, because we have difficulty observing that, it's changing too fast, we don't see exactly, yes. Just like the electricity flowing into the light bulb. So that, yes, Tosh, you're absolutely right. Light bulb analogy, yeah. So that's where the problem. And you know, this time also, Toshita and everyone, when I went to Sri Lanka this time, because I was already ill, when I landed at Colombo airport, some of my friends came to receive me, pick me, and then some of started staring at me. even before grabbing my bag, helping me. And then I asked why, because, and one of them told, I can't believe that you look much older this time. Within 1 year, you have changed a lot. But I myself hadn't noticed that. Why? Since the moment I left Sri Lanka the last time until then I reunited with my friends this time, within that calendar year, so I hadn't noticed my own change because I was absent from my friends' eyes. So that absence of my sight gave them a chance to compare my appearance with the last imprint of my appearance that they had registered in their brains when I left Sri Lanka the last time. Just like the light pipe analogy, and then Toshita is reminding. So absence of a situation makes us feel, help us to see that things actually change. When we are constantly coexist with these things, we don't see the reality of change. So because we are constantly looking at the bulb light, so we don't see the change because you are constantly living with your family. And then give me 1 second, please. So given the 1 second of, it doesn't show us, it doesn't, how to say, it only gives us a sense of change when an object or a person has been away from our eyes, has been away from our senses for a considerable time period of time. Only then would we be able to see that we have changed a lot. Until my friends told me that that I have changed during the last year, I didn't notice until they told me. I mean, probably you have that conventional experience. You experienced that too. Probably you happen to reunite with one of your family members or friends recently, and then probably one of the basic things that they would talk about is that you have become younger, or you have lost your weight, or you look much better, or maybe you look much older. So those comments convey a message, conveys a message that there is nothing really called existence, but there is only change available. Any last about question? And this is also based on the statement, yadanichang, whatever is impermanent, tan dukkang, that brings us suffering. Yan dukkang, whatever is suffering, tadanatta, cannot be taken as permanent. That is called anatta, or no self. No self in general terms. In religious terms, is no soul. Elsewhere, you also come across another translation. S-O-U-L, soullessness. Okay. Do you want me to type it in or just repeat? Just to say that. Okay, that is. Give me 1 second. That would be okay. That's okay. The nicham. Let me to see the clear etymology. Yam. Yada nichang. Yang anichang. Tang. Dukkham. Yang dukkham. Ta na tadanatta, meaning tang anatta. So yadanichang, yang anichang, tandukkang. Whatever is impermanent, tandukkang, that brings us suffering. Yan dukkang, whatever brings us happiness, whatever brings us unsatisfactoriness, cannot be considered. Okay, let me start. Tell me like this. Now, religion talks about a permanent soul, right? Permanent soul. Now, so in theistic, so according to Buddha rejects soul as being permanent, because if soul is permanent, that is, soul is the nucleus or the essence of our selfhood. If the nucleus is permanent, and then we should never go through aging, sickness, illness, death. So what is that? The phrase was typed earlier. Look up thread. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So Buddha made this statement in terms of pre-Buddhist belief that life is permanent. Our existence is permanent. Existence is permanent because God or Brahman created us, created our soul as permanent. Even though we shed or drop our physical body after our existence, and then our soul will continue to transmigrate, acquiring a new physical body. So always this permanent existence is understood in light of the nature of our soul or Atman. And then, so that is where the sense of permanent existence comes into being in theistic religions. And then what Buddha countered was, he didn't talk about the physical body that much. And then everybody would know that physical body is subject to decay, aging, illness, and death. And then what about then, so the nucleus or the essence of our selfhood, that is Atman or soul. And then in theistic religion, including Hinduism, permanent existence or the sense of permanent is understood in terms of soul or Atman, which according to theistic religions is permanent. Why? It transmigrates, it never goes through change. And so that the soul never goes through change itself. What it does is, it enters a new physical body, new life form, acquires a new body with the atomic dense body or a refined mind-made body, and it continues to stay. It continues to exist alone through the process of transmigration. Then what happens? When the soul finally is called back to Brahman, that is Brahma Sahavyata, and then again, it does stop transmigration. It does stop transmigrating, but then it continues to exist within Brahman because it returns to Brahman. Where does it come from? It came from Brahman and started transmigrating. Since it was created by Brahman, since the moment it was created, it was permanent. And as long as it goes through transmigration or shedding or dropping and acquiring new life forms, and still stays permanent. And then what happens? Even after it is called back to Brahman for the union with Brahman, it stays permanent because the only difference is it doesn't migrate anymore. It doesn't transmigrate anymore. It goes back to Brahman and it remains there forever. Now that is how the sense of permanence is understood in a religious sense. With that theistic notion in his head, Buddha came up with this teaching of the three signs of existence. Did I make that clear enough? Okay, let's then take a break. Okay, see you after lunch at 1:30. Good.